Welcome to the Two Off the Tee show on Fantasy Six Pack. We are Fantasy Six Pack's golf, DFS, and gambling show. I am your host, Keith Flemming. With me, my friend, my gambling guru / degenerate, Allen Sandige, aka Actively Lazy 85 on Twitter. What's going on, Allen?
Oh man, what's up?
We were so close last week, man, to
It's
starting
always
off
like
with a
that.
win.
Yeah,
Max Homa, come on, dude. We need you to finish.
anytime I pick somebody, you can guarantee they're coming in second. I should just do all top 5 bets for people that I think will win.
We did have some winners. We obviously had Zalatoris, 8-1 to top 5. That felt like that was stealing. We talked about that last week on the show. The guy's money. It was a golf course. It's ball striking. That's Zalatoris. Shane Lowry was so close to really helping me. We got the top 20. I had him to top 10 and top 5 as well. He just didn't do enough on the weekend, but played well. This week, we're going to be talking about the Honda Classic. Real quickly, before we get that going, I want to remind everyone you can become an all-access member of Fantasy Six Pack by going to fantasysixpack.net/plans. You'll get access to the Discord, access to award-winning rankings, tools, and more. If you join today using promo code F6PMLB, you get 15% off. On the Discord, you get access to their football experts, their basketball, baseball, hockey. You actually get access to me and Allen on golf and much more. So be sure to check that out. Last week, Rahm won again. What an unbelievable run this guy is on with his win at the Genesis. He is in 7 events this year, finished no worse than 6. He has 3 wins. He retook the number 1 player in the world from Scotty Scheffler. But you know what I want to talk about? I want to talk about John Rahm. I want to talk about my boy Tiger for a second, Allen. Don't shake your head. He looked good. You got to admit you were impressed.
I was impressed that he finished the tournament.
Come on.
Should have been a prop.
He had the third lowest round Saturday. Come on, man.
The third lowest round Saturday. I mean, he made the cut and all that's great. And then he gets up and he's like, well, I just hope that I can play all 4 majors. That's all I really want to do. So why are we talking about Tiger? I get it. He's a great ambassador to the game. He's done a lot. I wish him the best. And I sometimes, live bet and stuff like that on him from time to time. Great story. But there's so much more talent in golf that I feel like the game would be better if they utilize the exposure that they get from Tiger, but prop up other golfers. I think we talked about that a couple years ago too, where you got guys like JT and things like that need the exposure, need the boost, and they never use it as a boost. They just keep focusing on Tiger. I'm like, dude, Rahm is out here killing it. Rahm and Homa was a great battle the entire weekend, literally from start to finish. I mean, they were like Rahm, Homa, and Mitchell, I think, were in the same group pretty much the entire time. And all I kept hearing about was Tiger. And then Tiger gave JT a tampon, and then that blew up too. I'm like, dude, like golf, come on, man. Who's running your PR? Like, yes, it's great to get Tiger in. And Rahm is a Tiger fan. Homa is a Tiger fan. But those are things that are lost in Tiger's presence. And it's not Tiger's fault. It's the PGA's fault. I think they really need to capitalize on that exposure when eyes are drawn to the tournament for Tiger Woods. Use it to show more of Rahm, more of Homa, talk more about those guys as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I do want to say, though, that what I saw this week, just watch out at Augusta.
Man, his back seized up Saturday.
It was cooler, though.
It was like 67. Okay.
I'm just saying. We get a warm week in April at that venue. He's somebody to pay attention to. I was impressed with the way. I mean, he hit it past Rory on Friday on 18, which I don't think people understand. He has one leg, a fused back. That's how good the dude's hands are, that he's still out driving the best driver on tour. And I know he's not doing it every hole, but it's remarkable. Dude's 46 years old. He's the GOAT.
Can real quick, do they have like rules against like aids in golf? I know obviously you can't use the golf cart. Can he?
Well,
just
actually, you can use the golf cart. There has been medical exemptions. They've allowed players. It's basically like an ADA deal. But Tiger has shut that down. And
I
said,
ain't worried. It's not even for him to use the golf cart. I was gonna say, can't he get one of those like icy hot packs to put on his back or something to like keep it loose the entire time, or some kind of like Tiger Balm or something? Like, not even trying to be funny with the Tiger Balm, but
I'm not trying to be funny, but I would be shocked if Tiger it doesn't get some kind of cocktail before he goes out there and walks 18. I would imagine it's much like the NFL players, like Patrick Mahomes, probably before the AFC Championship and Super Bowl. He's getting shot up, and early in the round, I bet he feels fantastic. Now, late in the round, I can't guarantee because obviously they can't do anything after that. But I thought it was interesting. They said at the turn, he has to change and retape his shoe because I guess that's part of what's helped him walk and why he was able to walk so much better. At least it looked visually this week from the last time we saw him, was that at the turn, they basically just taped the crap out of his ankle and foot. I guess it doesn't allow it to move very much. And he has spoken and said that it makes him feel much more comfortable. Regardless what you think of the dude's just will to go out there and play when he doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the notoriety. He doesn't need any of it. He's a tough son of a bitch. So I talked about it on my Fantasy Six Pack article that came out today. You need to be sure to check that out at fantasysixpack.net, where I give a DraftKings lineup. I give an actual DraftKings lineup, 6 plays for it, and then 4 extra ones, so 10 total plays. I do want to also say that I had John Rahm in that last week. That means I have given the winner in my 10 plays 3 out of the last 6 weeks. Let's go. That unfortunately, I'm really disappointed in what the PGA Tour has done to this great tournament, the Honda Classic, at a great venue, PGA National. We have the elevated events this year, which for those that don't know, that means the players have to play in it. They have to show up, all the top players in the world. The purses are much bigger. I think it's at least 20 million. And every one of those, I believe, is the actual number. Well, unfortunately, because of where Honda is on the PGA Tour schedule, it is sandwiched in between 4 elevated events. So we had the Waste Management elevated event, Genesis elevated event. Then you had the Honda Anon one, followed up by Bay Hill, Arnold's event, which obviously is elevated, and the Players. So what that means is this field is lacking, to say the least. The best player in the world there, Sanjay M, 18th player in the world. It's very rare to see none of the top 15 players at an event like this that has a history that the Honda does. Luckily, as I put in the article, the PGA National is in itself what you come to watch, because these guys are going to have some issues this week. A very, very difficult course. Of course, we're talking about the Bear Trap. That's holes 15 through 17. It's going to garner a lot of attention. It's the 4th hardest 3-hole stretch on tour, but that's not the only difficult stretch on PGA National. It is the most difficult course on tour for approaches beyond 150 yards. The par 70 plays 7,100 and change, but it is anything but your traditional short course. Features some of the tightest fairways on tour, forces players to lay up rather than challenge the tight dog legs, and this is why the course is the most difficult tour on tour for more than 150 yards. Only 11% of the shots will be from 125 yards and within. That is something you rarely ever see on the modern tour, at least at that percentage, especially with how far these guys hit it these days. You definitely want to look for mid to long iron players at this venue. Players will hit 65% of their shots from 125 to 200 yards. That is well above the tour average. Course comps this week, it's really difficult. I do look at like Bay Hill, which it has a good bit of water, Bermuda greens. It's another venue that you're not going to see like really low scores. You will not see low scores here. I mean, over par normally makes the cut. Concession is another Nicklaus course that probably is the closest comparison. Unfortunately, there's not a ton of data for most of the guys in the field. They do have an event that started last year. It'll come up again this year in the fall. And then Muirfield is something I always look at because it's kind of this course, but in the north, not as much water, but again, the same type jack course with a lot of layups, a lot of long irons into it. The stats, though, you're looking at, and again, Alan, add any of these if you see that I missed, but for me, it's strokes gains approach / stroke gain ball striking, proximity 125 to 200, which is something you normally do not look at, especially something that large. But again, 65% of the shots are going to come from that distance. The big one for me, and correct me if you disagree with this, Alan, but just like at U.S. Opens, I'm really looking at bogey and double bogey avoidance, because when players are not going to make a lot of birdies and the scores are going to be low, I know normally we look at, total birdies made, par 5 scoring, par 4 scoring. It's really about not making big numbers.
A lot of prayer needed this week. It's just tough, as you say. Like, it's no exaggeration. And one of the cool things about betting golf is that you, as a capper, also feel the pressure that the players are feeling, because you two have to figure out who you're going to ride this week to get you a win, just like they've got to figure out how they're going to beat the course. And I will tell you from past experiences at betting this course, if you know somebody's crazy and they're willing to take on the water on the bear trap, don't bet them, because I've seen many a person try and many a person fail. You have to respect this course, given today's game of golf, which is pretty much the game that I know, because I just started following it like this last decade. Everything is emphasized on power and like the club speed, and this is a course that kind of humbles you, because you can hit it far as you want, but if you're not accurate, you're gonna pay. Doesn't matter who you are, you're gonna pay. And I personally like that, because it gives you an opportunity as a sports capper to make mistakes. Like you said, you can get a guy that's 3 over, and hell, he might be top 20, and on any given week on most courses, if you got a guy that's 3 over, he's not making the cut. And so with that being said, this is a week to take chances. Like, you can think as much as you want, but at the end of the day, you're kind of at mercy of the course. So I wouldn't lose any sleep over some of the picks this week. I emphasized, I went back at last year's tournament, looked at Sepp Straka, who won last year. I think he won he was 11 under something. He played amazing.
Go Dogs.
Nah, too much. But I looked at Sepp, and the key things with him that I noticed, he was top 5 in scrambling and putting in that tournament, top 20 in strokes gained approach, top 5 in greens and regulation, and the number 1 person for fairways hit. Looking at some historical data of winners and guys who've done well, taking into consideration top 10 finishers, all those categories were pretty consistent throughout the years at this course. So I emphasize looking for guys who could scramble, who could putt, but most of my emphasis was on the greens and regulation and scrambling, just because if you par here, you're sometimes, or most of the time, gaining a stroke on the field. Like, you talked about bogey avoidance. That's pretty much like a deeper stat, which I would say is on par. And I would consider ball striking secondary to fairways hit percentage, just because you don't want to end up in these hazards, man. You don't want to take on the water. You want to be as true as you can be. And again, if you got to lay up, you got to lay up, man. Don't
go 10 cup is what you're saying.
But going back to Tiger and even Homa last week, he had a little sticky situation where it was like, should he lay up? Should he go for the head? And he went for the hit, and it kind of cost him another stroke. But that mentality will get you crushed at this course. And so you have to go with golfers. If you do have a read on golfers, you need to go with guys that you're gonna be able to depend on to play smart. This is a thinking course.
Completely agree. The only other 2 that I would add that I think are really good stats, course comps to look at, strokes gained total, and be sure to do difficult conditions.
Yeah.
Again, remember, strokes gained total is accounting everything on difficult courses. This is definitely a difficult course. And then the other big one is, you look at the top 20 the last couple of years, there's at least 4 or 5 guys in there who didn't really do anything well but putting.
Yeah.
But they putted their mind out. And this is the first Bermuda green of the year. Strokes gained Bermuda greens is a stat that I would definitely at least take a peek at, especially if you're in between, say, two guys for your lineup or somebody for your betting card. It's not going to hurt you to check that out.
Real quick, for gambling purposes, because this week was kind of difficult in regards to picking people, because essentially nobody's completely out of it. My tiebreaker was course history. And there was even a couple guys who played this course on Corn Ferry, had to do a deeper dive, but still a couple guys who were considered by me because even that little bit helps. So if people are looking for tiebreakers in these smaller tournaments, or even when we get to the majors, if you're looking at, both guys have good current form, how do I pick between the two golfers, even at DFS, go with course history. And I typically go with the consistency of the course history, not just last year or 2 years. If they've played this course 5 times each and they've made the cut 4 out of 5 times, but one guy's only made the cut the last 2 times, I'm going with the guy that's 4 out of 5. Like that's how you would, in my mind, break it down and make your tiebreakers a little bit easier.
All right, just to add on to that, and then we'll get into the DFS and gambling plays. Some Honda Classic winter trends. And again, this was also in my article today. 14 of the last 14 winners played at least in one previous Honda Classic. So new guys, just be leery. 13 of the last 14 winners had made the cut, to Allen's point, the previous year at the Honda. 10 of the last 13 winners had finished 27th or better the previous year at this event, again, to Allen's point. The other course that I meant to mention, course comps, is Sawgrass. And I talked about a couple of guys in the article who have played well there historically. 11 of the last 13 winners had finished 17th or better at Sawgrass the year before. Very similar course. A lot of trouble lurking. 7 of the last 7 winners had finished 16th or better in an event on the West Coast swing leading up to their win, meaning that they need to have some recent form. And 10 of the last 13 winners had at least one previous top 10 in that season. So again, you just need to be mindful, not only, as Allen was saying, of the recent form at that course, but also on tour. All right, so we're going to do some DFS plays first. The expensive range, which again, this is the most expensive to $9K. I got 3 guys. Tell me what you think. I got Sanjay M, 10,700, by far the most expensive guy. I didn't use him for my official lineup on the Fantasy Six Pack article, but I used him as another option in that price range. I'm okay with you saying he's going to be my anchor, and I'm just going to, save money elsewhere. He's 10-1 to win, which I couldn't pick him to win because that's just, to me, that's too low of odds for a player like Sanjay M. No offense to him, especially at a track like this that we've had some wild winners in the past. But I do think he is the safest play by far this week. But I love Matt Kuchar at 9,300. He's the guy that I had as my anchor play. There's so many stats that basically show Kuchar is right there. He's in good form. He has 2 top 10s in his last 4 starts. He's made the cut at this event in all 4 appearances. He's in the top 30 on tour in greens and regulation and bogey avoidance. So I think Kuchar is about as safe as they can get. And then Denny McCarthy is my other expensive guy option, 9,100. He played great last week on the weekend. He's had 2 top 20s in his last 3 events. And he is 7th in the field on water-lined tracks, which is, as Allen said, very important. Just if you're curious of that list, number 1, Sungjae M, 2, Aaron Wise, 3, Shane Lowry, 4, Thomas Dietrich, 5, Taylor Pendrith, 6, Lee Hodges, 7th, Denny McCarthy. Do you have any in that 9,000 above other than those guys that you like?
I do. And I don't know, was Alex Noren out before we started the podcast?
No, is he out?
Okay, because he's out now. I was confused. I was like, I don't remember that. But anyway, Billy Horschel's really good on Bermuda.
Yes, he is.
And Florida. Just a little tidbit there.
Florida Gator. So
yeah, he's a consistent scorer. I don't have him in my lineup. I think he's a little overpriced here. I actually went with Kirk, because of his top 7 finish last year, and he actually finished pretty strong last year, and he's been pretty consistent this year. And going back to, you know, how I typically cap anyway, I look for previous top 10 finishers to put in my DFS anyway. So I thought for the value of 9,900, and if anybody knows, I was looking at my phone because I was trying to pull it up anyway. But at that value of 9,900, I liked him more. But I will say, Keith, one of the things that we didn't mention last week, and one of the things I forgot to remind you of, our best lineups have always been anchored by high scores.
Yep.
So with that in mind, M is probably the logical pick. He will just probably be a very popular pick. So I would say the contrarian move for me would have been Kirk in that lineup.
What about Thomas Dietrich? He's the other guy that I had in my article. 9K.
Yeah, he was
very consistent, great putter, hits a lot of fairways, a lot of greens. It's kind of funny, when he first came on the scene, he was considered a bomber because he's a big guy and he has the ability to do that, but he has really transformed his game to where he has lost some of his power. Still hits it plenty far, but he's done that to get accuracy, and his numbers around the green and putting are just really good. And he's been so consistent this year. I love seeing guys that consistently finish in that 20 to 30 range, which is what he's done. That just shows that they're playing well week in and week out. And this is the kind of track that it's not going to take necessarily a great week by a lot of these guys to win. Now, there's plenty of players that they would have to have a great week to win. But some of these top guys, if they just can continue to play well and smart, to Alan's point earlier, I think they got a great chance of winning. The next range, 8,900 to 7,700. Adrian Moronic. I don't know if I'm saying that name right. Congratulations to him first. He became the first Polish player in the history of the tour to finish and make the cut at a PGA Tour event in the United States, which is pretty cool. But this kid has a lot of game. A lot of game. He's already won on the World Tour. He has 3 top 10s this season. He obviously made the cut last week. I think he finished like 45th. He's a great player, tee to green. He is somebody that really drives the ball well. He gained over 2 shots on the field off the tee last week at the Genesis. That could be huge again this week. I know the Genesis is a lot easier driving course, but I think he's a great play this week, and somebody that's not going to be high on, because a lot of people are like, who the hell is he? Ben Griffin, if you've been reading my article week after week, at 7,900, he is somebody I have in almost every week. One of the best rookies on tour. What I like about him, especially this week, was his last start at Pebble, he finished 88th, his only missed cut of this season. And he is somebody that, for DK especially, top 15 in the field in DK scoring this year. So I think he's a real value. And then Robbie Shelton, 7,800. He's had, now granted, he missed the cut last year, which that's not great with the stat that we gave you, but he finished T11th here in his only other start in 2021. I think he definitely has the game, the Englishman does, for this track. You like Shelton this week, or do you think that, because he seems to me have the game that's going to translate here?
I feel like it's almost too obvious, but it's up Streka, man. Like he's got good history here. It's like he's at 8,500. When we get to the gambling thing, I'll also say that I'm very confused by his odds. I guess current form, but like historically speaking, and the fact he won last year, I feel like they should have gave him a little bit more respect. And again, we talked about how difficult this course was. Shooting 11 under here is excuse my French, pretty damn impressive. So I felt like they just kind of disrespected him a little this week. And in this price range, I feel like he's got to be a guy that you use if you got the money, just based off of the consistency. And out of everybody in this price range, he's pretty much the highest score as well. One other guy that I wanted to play, but I just couldn't because he can't putt worth the damn, apparently, is Vegas. But he's got everything but the putting down. And I feel like, DFS wise, I need you to hit those birdies, man, when you can, or save par when you can. And putting is going to be very crucial this week.
Yeah, completely agree there. the next range, the cheap range, basically 7,600 and below. We both have Young and as the guy in this group, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, his track record here is unbelievable. His course history,
it really is.
He has a miscut. Granted, I give you that, but 2 top 5s in his last 4 appearances. Also a T36. Strokes gained around the green in this field. T first. What did you talk about, right? Like you got to be able to scramble. Bunker proximity, 4th. Strokes gained off the tee, par 70, par 71s, under 7,200 yards. He's 8th. Man, like, again, he's probably going to be high owned. Go ahead and tell you that. I don't care. Like, it's just rare that you have a guy that so many of the numbers line up for him. And then he also has that course history. Obviously, the one thing I don't like is the miscut because, again, 12 out of the last 13. If we're talking for winners, even though I did give them in my winners, we'll get into that in a little bit. I still think he's got a great chance to top 20. And in this price range, I think he's just a can't miss play. Will Gordon, another guy I really like, 7,500. He's another young guy on tour. Love the fact he's got the game A for this place, but to go here as your first ever start last year and finish T36, I take note of that. Like, that's huge. I like him a lot. And then if you're looking for a flyer, Kramer Hickok, 6,800.
I remember him.
He's not somebody that you're going to look at and go, what the hell? He's made 2 out of 10 cuts. So I know people will go, what are you doing, Keith? Top 20 last week. So that checks a lot of the box. Granted, he had a miscut last year, but his previous 2 starts here, T21st, T35. And again, he's got the game for this track. I really like him in that under 7K price range.
I don't feel so bad about saying Russell Knox then, since you said
no, dude. But previous form is not, a huge deal.
Yeah,
because we haven't really had. Sony is probably the closest comp course to this we've had, and that's not even really a fair comparison.
Yeah, and the course is hard. I actually just erased Will Gordon off my bet list because I don't think he'll win, but he's definitely a good DFS pick. So I was on him. I liked him, but given some of the things we talked about, I just switched him out for somebody else. So DFS wise, I think Gordon is a good go-to. And then like I just mentioned, me personally, I got Russell Knox in this range. Made 10 out of his last 13 cuts. Not necessarily a high scorer, but somebody that I think I can depend on to hang around to make the cut. Because at this price range here, you would love to get guys that are going to score high, but you ultimately want these dudes you just want them to make the cut because they're going to boost you in the Saturday and Sundays.
A reminder, though, it's not like most weeks where you'll have guys that end up finishing like top 20, 30 and scoring for the week, and they're not in the top 10.
Yeah.
The people that get the bonus points are going to be the guys at the top because you're just not going to make a lot of birdies here. It's just not the case. So I'm with you. You really are just looking at guys you think that are going to make the cut and do well. All right, let's move on to some of our gambling picks. Picks to win. Did you have anybody lower than my Denny McCarthy and Matt Kuchar at 28-1 on your card?
Originally, I had Lowry, but I took him off. Just think that's just too easy. So no, not right now. Chris Kirk is 28-1. That's my lowest.
Yeah, Kirk was going to be another guy that I was going to include, but I don't call it superstitious, call it whatever the hell you want to. I did not want to have 3 guys at 28-1, but I've spoke about McCarthy and Kuchar earlier. I really like them. My next guy is Adrian Moronic. Again, 45-1, the Polish player. I really like him this week. Again, he won on the World Tour at a tough venue in November, had 3 top 10s on the World Tour. That was only his 2nd start ever in the States last week. He's got to feel great having, gone there and played well. And if we're being honest, most European World Tour events are closer to this type of a golf course challenge than they are to your week in, week out PGA starts. It's partly why the European Tour just destroys us. in the Ryder Cup, especially when it's in Europe, is because they play different courses than the PGA Tour does. I like him a lot at 45-1. Do you have anybody in that like 30 to 45 range?
I've got Dietrich and Taylor Pendrith.
I like Taylor a lot this week.
Taylor was a pure stat pick. Doesn't have like the course history you would really expect. I think he was one of my Corn Ferry guys. I think he was top 25 Corn Ferry or top 50, something like that. But either way, statistically, looking at greens and regulations, scrambling, putting, fairways hit, those stats that I named earlier, he checked most of those boxes. So I was like, I'm willing to take a chance on the young guy. Dietrich, just because he's just been really consistent right now. And then those are my only two. How high did you go again?
Well, I mean, like we're getting the 50s. I was just saying,
okay.
Beyond
is 49-1. So yeah, just those three guys in that range.
Yeah. So we both have on at 50-1. I think Robbie Shelton needs to be in there at 50-1. Again, I'm with you that it's kind of chalky, but I mean, he's the 38th ranked player in the world. So he is the third best or highest ranked player in this field, and you're getting 50-1 odds. And again, a field that is not deep. I really think there's some value there. That's why I have him on. We talked about. Do you have any others? Because I got two like long shots I'll get to.
I'm gonna write Shelton down and give him a look. That is interesting. But yeah, here we go. Last week I said Big Z. Aaron Ray is my European Tour like under the radar talent. And I always go back to Hatton. I remember I accidentally bet Hatton one time in a tournament. It was a European Tour tournament. Had no idea that there was even a freaking golf association in Europe. Like, that's how green I was. I had no idea what I was doing. And it was around the time I think boxing was going on. Ricky Hatton. I saw Hatton and was like, oh, I'll just bet a Hatton. Like, this is the dumbest thing ever. But he ended up winning. And I became like kind of a casual fan of the European Tour. And I've also noticed that the European players who come over and play the Florida swing typically don't have to do much adjusting. And with that being said, I think the value at 56-1 on Ray, he played here last year, didn't necessarily do that great, but he survived. And what I noticed last year when he was on tour is that he would have moments of bright spots, like bright moments, reminiscent to the Wolves, the Hovlands, those types of guys who they come over and they start early in the tour and they find these sparks here and there, but it never just quite clicks. And then when it finally does click, is typically in a tournament like this. So I'm willing to bet on him at 56-1. Even got him as my prop pick, top 5 at 12-1. Again, a little too eager, but this is just me just putting some confidence out there in him and his style of play. A guy that I think people should keep an eye on, though, because at some point he's going to get you a win and he's going to be very fairly priced. Like, he's a guy I think that needs to be on your radar this year and even into next year, similar to how I used to get Jon Rahm at 60-1. You know, like you see a golfer with some talent and you got to kind of follow on the heels, because again, if I bet him 10 times in a row and he finally wins at 60-1, I'm gonna make some money off of him. So it's just, one of those things where you just have to find your guy. This is my guy for this tournament. This is my guy this year. That, again, every time we consistently go through these podcasts, you will hear me talk about him in spots where I think you can find value for him. Weaker fields, definitely taking him to win.
Yeah, and again, the point you're making about the European Tour, just so people know kind of the reasoning for it, because I think there is a direct correlation. Again, you got places like Bay Hill, the Players, this venue where you got water. You can't just bomb it off the tee. It doesn't turn into just a driving wedge fest. And the scoring is just, it's not as low as your typical week to week on PGA Tour. And then again, if the wind blows, these European guys are so used to that. So I really like that. Just two long shots I do want to mention. I do want to also just mention, even though I do not have them on my board yet, but I was impressed by Harris English last week.
Yeah, I had him on my board, but I took him off.
He's 35-1. He's gained 17 strokes his last 3 trips here on the field. Finished T17, T12 his last 2. So I like what I saw in him. Harris English is arguably, other than M, maybe the most talented guy in the field. Like when he has it going, he's as good as any player here because he can do it all. Harris can drive the ball. He can ball strike. He can putt. He can chip. He's just a really good player. And if he's getting back into form, I actually think there might be a little, juice at that 35-1. You're getting a little extra odds than you should. Yeah. But 2 long shots. And again, at this event, take your shot. Last year, Straka, over 100-1 here to win. So it does happen. Give me Paul Molinati and Ben Martin, both at 130-1. Ben Martin especially. I loved what I saw at him at Pebble, which again, maybe other than the Sony, is the closest correlation that we have to this. It's a course that you can't just overpower. There's a lot of water. He played very well there. He's one of the best iron players on tour, one of the best guys on hitting fairways and greens. And the best part is what he struggles with is long courses. Pebble is not a long course. This is not a long course. I could see Ben Martin doing very well. You got any long shots? So we're getting to the prop bets.
Russell Knox at 95-1. And then honestly, if you think somebody has a chance to throw a dart, man, really, this is like you said, Seth was 100-1 last year, and he's 54-1 this year. I have him on my list. I forgot to mention him earlier, but it's more of a, again, he played so well last year that I'm wondering, and he's been consistent on this course. I'm wondering if it's just one of those courses that fits his eye and that you kind of can't overlook, because this field is way weaker than last year. So,
and to your point, first T33, T27, his last 3 starts here. The one thing I will warn you about Straka's performance last year, he gained almost 9 shots on the greens, which he normally does not do that week to week.
Yeah.
But maybe it's one of those deals where he feels really comfortable putting at this course, right? Like you got to feel good if you made all the putts he did last year coming into this field.
I mean, he was incredible last year.
He played great. He lapped the field. I mean, it was a runaway. I enjoyed it. Again, go Dogs. Getting into the don't shake your head. Back-to-back natties. Getting into the prop bets. Top 5 plays. I was so close to doing Kuchar plus 650, but I went with Denny McCarthy plus 6,000. He's had T30, T3 his last 2 starts here. Ben Griffin, who I think is, like, you're talking about guys that you need to watch. Ben Griffin is going to win on tour in the next year or 2. He just is. I've been so impressed. It's so impressive when these guys come on and immediately find success, which he has. And he's just a ball striker. I mean, that dude can frickin' like tee to green. He's better than most players. And then obviously again, 2 top 5s in his last 4 starts. You're getting 10-1 odds. Sign me up for that all day.
I'm on Aaron Ray. Top 5 12-1. It's funny to me because it really is like, I don't do like super long shots on my props, right. But I'm just like, this is the week to take a shot. I took Sep top 10 5-1 is what I consider the safe bet, but on is 10-1 the top 5.
No, he's 10-1 to top 5. He's 5-1 to top 10, which I have him to top 10 as well.
Those are pretty solid given his history. And one of the things about him is that each year he's done well here. You see that like slow wave trend, and you can kind of see that in this year's play too. So,
all right. So for top 10, again, I got on 5-1. I'm going to double down on Griffin. Again, if you can't tell, I'm a big fan of Griffin. I expect big things from him this week and just this week this season on tour. He's shown immediately, again, by all those finishes in the top 30, 7 out of 8 starts. He's a force to be reckoned with. And then for a long play in the 10-1 or top 10 range, Ben Martin, 11-1. Again, I talked about all of the categories that he excels at that usually leads to success at this venue. I think that's a good value. Do you have any other top 10 plays before we get into the top 20s?
No. Again, I kept it pretty lean because that 12-1 is probably going to be like I explained last week. I put like 4 units on Z. Yeah. So I'm not going to put 4 on Aaron, but I'll put 2 on him. So I was like, if I'm doing that,
and explain that real quickly. If somebody,
right, so units for me in golf generally are $10 increments, just because the odds are so high. Now I'll double, triple unit like a Rory McIlroy at the Players if he's got good history and he's 10-1 or something like that. I'll put $30-$40 on him. That's different. But like guys who are like typically in the range where I win, the 40-1s, the 60-1s, I'm not putting a lot of money on that particular outright. I typically focus more on the props. So let's say if Max had a 1 last week, I'd have been up pretty well because he was 18-1 that I got him at, and then I put $45 on Z at 8-1, and then you add in the fact I only essentially put in on my outright wins like $60, but then I'm returning over 300. Like for me, like that's just how I do my slow build up, and essentially I use these smaller tournaments to raise my pot, because come Masters and the majors, you guys will see like I'm betting them like I bet the horses in the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont. Like I bet Gulfstream all the time, but I'm doing $10-$15 increments learning. But then when it's go time, which in golf is the majors, then you're really laying some money down and trying to really maximize all your plays.
Yeah, especially at Augusta, and the Players are the 2 venues that I'll do that at because they play there every year. And we really have an idea of what players, succeed there. And then obviously you have a pretty big sample size by both those times. Players is in 2 weeks, Masters in like 4. But no, I think that's really smart. And again, that's the great part about gambling on golf is really, as long as you're getting a winner every 5-6 events, you should be at least winning money, especially if you can do pretty well in some of these props. That's why we give them. But I'm with Alan that if you feel really good about a guy, you should bet more. And correct me if I'm wrong. If you ever take somebody that's less than 20-1, you normally put a little extra than you would on like a 30, 40, 50-1 guy.
If I'm,
I just want to make sure. Yeah.
If I'm betting somebody between 10 and 20, like I'm going to make it worth my time.
There you go.
But I learned a very hard lesson a long time ago. You don't bet golf like you bet NFL.
Yeah.
so anybody, at least not on my end, that's not how I'm doing it. But everybody has a different
that way.
Yeah, everybody has a different pot. Ultimately, our goal here is to win. What I usually tell you, 1 to 2 tournaments a month. And that's outright win. Like prop bets are good, like boosters, but I want an outright win at least twice a month. And I feel like no matter how that goes, as long as I get 2 wins out the month, I'm in the green, which is good.
Yeah, I would say it's actually every 2 months, and you should be in the good.
Yeah,
but
my expectations are high.
I know you're he's a degenerate. Top 20 plays. I mentioned Kramer Hickok earlier. I really do like him this week. I think
what a name.
I know, right? I think he's a under the radar guy. Plus 450. I think that's good odds. Andrew Novak is another guy that I think a lot of the trends and stuff look good for him when you do the course comps, and then as well as just his numbers. He's plus 550. And then I like to take shots in the top 20s. You know that. I follow golf for so long. I kind of feel like I kind of know the guys that I feel like they're worth taking a shot. I mean, if you hit a 12 to 11-1 top 20, it turns into a good week, even if you don't have the winner.
Heck yeah.
I like Camilo at 12-1 this week. This is the kind of venue that he just comes out of nowhere and does it. He's done it plenty of times. And the guy I really like in this range is Scott Brown, 11-1. Scott Brown is one of those guys that he normally plays short, difficult courses well and nothing else. And this is a short, difficult course. I was shocked to see he was 11-1 because he's had a couple of good players finishes. He's done well at the Sony in the past. He plays these shorter courses well. I really like Scott Brown 11-1.
Yeah, and anybody wondering why I don't have any long shot top 20s? All my long shot top 20s went to LRV, so I've got to figure out new guys. Most of the guys that I would usually bet in these spots are gone. So one thing I would suggest, using, and, when you first started looking into golf gambling, I told you utilize what you know as a fan of the sport. So you guys who play golf, who actually follow golf, like the guys coming from Korn Ferry and some of their course history and stuff like that. These are the times where you can get really good odds on those guys. Zalatoris is a guy that I don't even remember how I came across him when he was at Georgia, but for some reason I knew who he was before he came to the PGA Tour, and I was absolutely eating on him getting top 20 like odds of like 8-1, 9-1, 12-1 in some of these like majors and bigger tournaments, because I think he had an exemption, but he was a good golfer, and I knew that coming in. You guys as fans and people who play the sport, you're around some of these clubhouses and things like that. Use that inside information, because when you get like a Scott Brown or whoever the next big thing is, and he's up and coming, you can manage playing props on him, because a lot of these young guys are top 20 talents coming in. Matt Wolff, when he won his first tournament, I got him at 71 because I knew who he was, and I was like, yo, I'll take a long shot on him, and he won, but he was already getting top 20 hits for me. So again, utilize what you know on the sport to kind of boost your pockets.
Yeah, Zalatoris last year in the majors, we did very well with.
Yeah, he was an animal. I'm
like by the end, obviously by the last major, finally the odds came down. But again, top 10 and top 5, Vegas 3 or 4. So we did very well between Augusta and the PGA Championship. So thank you, Big Z, for that. But so that is it for the Honda. Again, it's a little sad that the event is lacking some of the players, but I think you really, like, if you are a gambler, whether it be DFS or gambling, you need to heed what Allen said, that this is a week where you're going to get to see a lot of guys that you won't see week to week. And that could help you down the road. We've got a U.S. Open coming up this summer, which this is basically a U.S. Open venue. It plays like a U.S. Open venue. So you can get some information there. So just be sure to pay attention to that. And again, real quickly before we get out of here, join the all-access membership at Fantasy Six Pack. You can go to fantasysixpack.net/plans. Again, you get access to their Discord, which it's worth the price of admission right there. You also get their award-winning rankings, tools, and a lot more. If you join today using the promo code F6PMLB, you get 15% off. That is definitely worth doing. So be sure to do that. But for Keith and Allen, good luck this week, and we will be back next week. It's go time, man. We got Bay Hill, we got the players. It's and then Augusta's right around the corner. So I'm excited. But
it'll happen quick. I'm excited.
I'm ready for it. I can bet on Tiger too, so I know that'll make you happy. But for Keith and Allen, this is the 2 Off the Tee show on Fantasy Six Pack. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care.